there's a couple of things up in the nest. My latest release is up there. The last session as a podcast, I put them out on Mondays before, this event on Wednesday. So every 2 weeks, the podcast comes out and then we do another one of these sessions. We're hanging out, we're chatting. We are talking about writing, publishing, and authorship. It can be promotional. It can be a workshop. It can be a general Q&A or just kind of talking shop in general. It doesn't matter where the conversation goes, in my opinion, so long as it goes where you guys like. Additionally, I have a couple other posts up there from Chris Hackett. Tomorrow, we will be releasing some new videos. So I'm in a group of folks. We put out video shorts using AI every so often. What's up, Marnie? And then also he hosts a space on Thursdays where it's basically focused on the Film 3 community, but also, AI filmmakers and everything in general. So basically, whatever you like, you're allowed to talk writing over there. Marnie, obviously, if you want to come up, you're welcome to. You're a writer. I see you. Just ask for the mic and I'll bring you up. So if there are aspects that you want to dive into out of the gate, since you're here already, feel free. I would say this is your space, perhaps more than mine, even, really. That's how it's supposed to function.
Having a julep on the porch here.
Nice.
Yeah. So, when it comes down to this, we had a conversation, I think, a couple weeks ago, maybe a month ago, with you and I and MJ. I don't know where she is, but we were talking about putting out, what do you call it? Well, in this instance, it was Mount Timeless Tales, or we had said Mount Timeless Digest or Mount Timeless Review, whatever we were calling it during the meeting.
Yeah.
So Tom and I are kind of we're kind of serious about that. He and I have a bunch of stories from our last writers club, and I have a novella, cyberpunk novella, which I'm just going to break that up and serialize that,
Yeah.
And then turn our attention with our shows on here to recruiting and seeing if anybody else wants to go in issues, So that's, Tom's on vacation. He's tomorrow or whatever, he's not going to be around. He's in Florida, and he's supposed to be working on this, what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So, we're very interested about that. Promoting that and exploring that. I'm sure if he was here, he would love to talk about it. But what could you recommend with regards to that? You remember the conversation we had, and we're gonna
sure.
We're gonna have another one of our shows where it'd be really great if you were there, if MJ was there. But anything you have to talk about with regards to that, I'd love to hear.
Yeah, I would say this is the thing that helps me the most, is kind of setting deadlines for myself and then scrambling to meet those self-imposed deadlines, because that basically, we could continue to work and hone the material forever and not feel like it's done or it's perfected, but I am more interested in getting stuff out there and working on new things. So you can always come back to stuff and tweak it later. And I would say, with what you're discussing, in terms of a periodical, in whatever format you want to do that, print on demand or ebook distribution as well, that the best thing for you is to say, look, let's get this thing out by such and such date, grab up what you have and run with what you have. If people want to be involved, and, most likely they will, there's lots of writers around and here specifically on Twitter as well. Obviously, like we kind of all run together and kick our stuff around. So the thing for me is really to say, like, look, if you can develop a theme for it, that's good. But even if not, if you can just get something out the door, that's, step one. And then people see it, they know that you're serious about it because you have actually gone beyond the talking stage and actually produced something, published something, released it. In terms of getting into, a larger publishing house or having some kind of partnership with them in terms of distribution or becoming an imprint, those things all take time to develop those relationships and then to get them, moving forward the way that you want. Hey, what's up, Julian? You're welcome to come up too. I haven't seen you in a while. So that's kind of the way I go about it. So, for me, like my next publishing deadline after having gotten Relic of the Aztecs out as an ebook and an audiobook is to release volume 3 of my national park series. So I'm shooting for October or November as the release of that. And I'm kind of chipping away little bits at a time. So most of the national park entries, those chapters are finished. They're not laid out by any means, but in terms of the editorial, that's in the shape that I want it to be. It's saying and doing all of the things that I need it to. Now, obviously, when I get into layout for this stuff, that'll change a little bit, maybe. Hopefully not, because I've started recording the audiobook chapters for the ones that are done. So I don't want to change them too much, but how they are arranged on the physical paper, that is, more plastic. Obviously I want the paragraphs and stuff that are associated with particular photography to be next to that. So that is something that you have to be cognizant of. Additionally, even for what you're doing, you're going to be worried about page count, but also illustrations or photos if you're putting those in. And that's something that you'll kind of figure out as you start to do it. Like I think I mentioned before on your space a few weeks ago, I used to do a monthly periodical. So like a monthly magazine.
Yeah,
and
that's cool.
Yeah, it was a lot of work. Our first week of the month was always physical distribution. And then our last week of the month was always cramming to get to the printer so that we had our next copy. For you, if you're looking at like a 3-month release schedule, that gives yourself a really good buffer in terms of gathering material and then, doing that layout. That was a job for us. This doesn't necessarily need to be a job for you, but you want to approach it in a serious way. So that's something that I would consider. Like, if you're looking at doing seasonal releases or you're looking at doing any sort of kind of regular expected schedule of releases, set those deadlines for yourself and your audience and also the people that you want to participate. Because if you're going to say, look, we're going to release this thing on August 1st, you really want to make sure that you have all of your submissions in by the end of June so that you can do your layout and everything and get submitted through July for, say, if you're doing KDP for print on demand or ebook distribution. And that, obviously, they take not that long typically to get approved. Again, like it's usually only a few days as I've seen it. Actually getting the audiobooks approved for ACX and Audible, that, usually runs about 10 days, but plenty of times I have seen it come in under 10 days as well. Now that I've done a handful of those. What's up, Autumn? You're welcome to come up as well. Just ask for the mic and I'll bring you guys up. We're just kind of talking about the potential Mount Timeless review or digest project and how to schedule that out. If you guys are looking for places to get your work, this is a good networking opportunity to talk with the person who will be one of the editors in chief.
Yeah, because the thing is, going all the way back to when I started the last club, which is now like defunct. The whole point behind like what I was trying to do, I don't know that it ever occurred to everybody the same way it occurred to me, but I like the concept of like writers' movements,
Mm-hmm.
like the notion of the beat generation. or the Inklings,
Mm-hmm.
um, even like Kathy Acker and like what she had back in the day. You know, I think that that's like integral to writing, improving, and becoming more varied, and difference injected into everything, because that's been my objective, is to write as different as possible. um but like in the same token, we were trying to create like a subgenre, and we haven't really wrestled with that too much. We're kind of going to leave it like open ended, like one of the old school pulp mags, you know what I'm saying? So it could be like sci-fi or fantasy or horror or even like poetry and stuff. We're just going to have a certain word ceiling we're trying to hit and make like the most beautiful edition we can make. And we're trying to do it like 4 times a year. But I do have to talk with him about official dates and when is when. Like, we thought we were going to design like the first couple issues to make the deadline like a little bit chill and give us the time to find people who might want to be in this thing. Um, does that make any sense, Michael, as far
Yeah.
as like what we should be doing?
Yeah.
Because we're new at this thing. That's why I'm saying I don't want to pretend like I know. We tried to do a newsletter years ago, with the old club, but it was just too crazy with the pandemic. The pandemic really made it difficult for us.
Well, this is your chance again.
Yeah, I'm not stopping. I'm not stopping is what it boils down to. We will not be deterred, as they say. So yeah, that's great, man. Babbletron's a cyberpunk book. Each chapter is around like 2K words, and I plan on serializing that just like kind of into infinity until it's spent. Tom's got a bunch of stories. He's already talking about like pulling Shrill out, so it promises to be a very nice little book. Do you have anything that you would contribute, or do you think there's anyone here? I know it's a little early for all this cementing things, but because we don't have an official submission open yet.
Sure. No, I'm happy to run something, if you have the space and, you feel like something of mine, it fits with, what you're working on. Yeah, I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, that'd be great. Because we're going to do a bunch of shows with reads. Like, we're going to have people come on and read. But obviously there'll be an official submission as well. We'll exchange emails and get whatever it is we're doing. But I like those reading shows. I don't know if everyone does, but I do.
I did MJ's recently, maybe last week, I think, where I read the first segment of a new piece I'm working on, which is actually based on the video I put out a couple of months back called The Fall of Tartaria. So I'm turning that into a short story, and that'll be, I'm guessing it'll probably be about 2,500 to 3,000 words as it's shaping up right now, which is, a decent run, I feel like, in terms of, attention and just me kind of stretching out. I'm not a well-seasoned fiction writer, so for me to plug away at it, if I get 200 or 300 words in a session, I'm happy with that, and that kind of like gives me a little bit of work to do. And I usually will write my physical stuff, then convert it into digital, and then I'll kind of mull on that for a while. If it's
so you write in notebooks, you compose with stylus on paper.
I do a little bit of both. So what I'll do is I will put all my stuff down, like all the ideas or whatever. So like, for example, that particular story had that video had a narrator and it had dialogue. So I kind of took that material and then put that into, a word processor, and then started to kind of make changes, because what works in video versus what you need to happen in a short story are slightly different. So there's a lot more room that I had with the editorial to be able to kind of stretch out into that material versus what was happening on screen, because I'm showing a lot of things, and in the editorial I have to actually tell those things. So, you know, a little bit different.
I've written screenplays before, although that was about 20 years ago. And I have also worked with other projects of a similar nature, and it's a lot of fun doing that stuff, man. A lot of fun, but it's also like demanding. You know, there's a lot of time, and it's like the last project I did that was like remotely cinematic. There was a lot of ego getting thrown around the room, and I think a lot of collaborations are like that. You know, like we didn't have the success we wanted to with the last collection, the corporate gothic thing, because there was some of that in there. But when it came to the other project, the cinematic project, I thought it was more so. I don't know who you work with, but do you find any of that, like flakiness or egocentrism?
So, you know, I do a lot of my writing kind of solo. You know, it's not necessarily collaborative. When I used to work for periodicals, obviously, you know, I worked as an editor in that capacity at times. So kind of would flex other people's material into shape, you know, and place things that might be beneficial to advertisers and maybe to the genre of magazine that we were. You know, more recently with the stuff that we're doing now with this video group, this is basically, you know, everybody does their solo work, but we'll pick themes. So like tomorrow, the theme that we're discussing is kind of threefold. So it's like, rebirth, rejuvenation. Gosh, I'm stumbling on my words here. Rejuvenation, renewal, and rebirth. So there's, you know, the theme there is kind of like things beginning anew, very spring oriented. I feel like that is fitting for the time we're in. But everybody gets to work on their own video, you know, however they want to embody those themes and create the material as they see fit. So that, you know, there's not a whole lot of like everybody getting their hands into the pot. There's not too many cooks in the kitchen in that way. We all get to create our unique thing. Now we're talking about doing some larger works where, you know, everybody would be a little bit more involved in different aspects of the collaboration. And we have done some pitches where we pitched some music videos using AI to a few folks. And that was very much like, you know, the deadline was so tight on that pitch that basically for us, you know, it was like, well, do you have the capacity to do this in terms of skill and time within the next couple of days? And it's like, whoever could do those certain things, that's who did it. And like, I didn't actually create any of the imagery, but I did some lip syncing stuff and some audio editing and a little bit of clip creation for the vocalist inside of that pitch. And that was really all I did. You know, I wasn't creating the scenes. The other guys were doing more of the scene creation or doing like getting characters that looked like the people that were basically using, you know, like AI technology for like IP adapters and character reference to be able to look like, you know, the guitarist and the vocalist from this group that we were pitching. So that was very much, you know, there was just no time for like the ego kind of stuff. And I think maybe that kind of comes from folks that don't necessarily have a lot of experience getting stuff out the door. So for us, like, we just had to get this thing shipped. We had a deadline, and it was like, well, I don't care if my ideas aren't getting the representation or whatever, or like my work's getting mutated by other folks. It's like, we got to ship this thing. So like, I just want to get it done. You know, it wasn't a sort of thing where I was feeling like I was being undermined by somebody's, you know, sense of ego or whatever. It didn't really matter. And we have our own projects that we're able to create the way that we want to and do them the way that we want to. So there's always those channels. And I think, when you are doing these kind of collective or collaborative things, whether that's editorial or videographic, you need to think a little bit like that too, where it's like, well, maybe this isn't that time where I'm going to get everything that I want. And like this other thing that I'm doing, that's going to be, I'm going to have, more creative control of that. And so the video that I'm putting out tomorrow or the next day, I did all of the images for that. I did the narrative for that. I did all the motion for that. I did all of the music. I wrote the music for it too. So I scored this piece. And did all the editing and post-production and effects and everything and mixing and, it's all my piece. So I, in that way, it's like, that's a great opportunity for me to be able to do all of the things or flex my ego in that sense, I guess, if that's, even really the thing I'm thinking about. I really am not. I'm just like wanting to be able to put something together that I think is cool and interesting and uses the tools in ways that I find compelling currently. And I think that extends over to editorial work as well. So if you're doing, and you've done this, so you kind of know as well, like when you're putting a book together, could a better editor edit better than me? Of course. Could a better layout person lay something out better than me? Yeah, of course. But like, do I have the budget for them to do that? Well, I'm not trying to do that. So I'm doing the best that I can at any given time. So like my previous books, I've gone back and released second or third editions of that stuff where I've cleaned it up or changed components or fixed grammatical errors and things like that, because it was something that I discovered later on, a greater skill or ability or just didn't even notice that there were errors, at times. So it happens.
Right on, man. Right on. Yeah. I mean, I find it very exciting. Like you were talking about the way you are articulating your professionalism, the issue of deadlines. And I'm very interested in that too. I usually come at it from a more creative angle, as far as like, I get my stuff done as quickly as possible so that I'm not a subject for deadline. Because I don't like that. I don't like the pressure of deadlines. That's why I'd rather build things like really early, like ahead of time and stuff. I know that's not ideal. That's not always how it's going to be or whatever. But the deadlines were less of a problem with the last group. It was more like, well, why does it have to be this way? Well, why should it? And it's like, we were just making sick. And trust me, this group was like not a bunch of negative Nellies as far as like confrontation or harsh criticism. Like we were very, very light and delicate with how we put things, and it's like, I don't know. I'm hoping for the next round is going to be less complicated, I'm hoping that it will work out a little smoother.
So I suppose if you build it that way, now that you've done one where it didn't necessarily go the way that you had hoped or expected, you can build this in such a manner as to potentially avoid some of that stuff. Hey, what's up, Heidi? You're welcome to come up. I don't know, what you have going on. Just request a mic and I'll add you. Anybody, that's hanging out and listening, you're more than welcome to join the conversation. This is very much an open hangout session. But yeah, I think if you structure it that way and build in the way to avoid pitfalls that you might have perceived in a previous venture, then you'll be able to hopefully make this a little smoother for yourself.
Yeah, I think opening up the genres, like the fact that we were literally trying to create our own subgenre of horror, I think that was very defining. But I think in this instance, because we're opening up to more pulpy things, different variety of things, I'm hoping it'll populate and cooperate a little bit better,
Heidi, what's going on? How are you?
I'm good. I'm kind of helping my son with something, so I may shut the mic off, but I wanted to come in because I wanted to hear what you guys were talking about.
Yeah, we're hanging out.
I'm just trying to write. What can I say? And learn to record. that's just sort of my focus.
Hopefully I had some helpful feedback for you guys.
You were, I want to give you like all the flowers. It was incredibly helpful, everything that you showed us, or telling us. You were, I don't know if I expressed it right, but you were putting into work, because I don't understand the audio side of doing it, because if anyone knows, we're trying to do an audiobook right now of my novel. And I could tell there were things that weren't working, but I couldn't verbalize them because I didn't have the language. So I can't thank you enough for kind of being able to speak that language, basically. So I think, that was incredibly helpful. I just can't thank you enough. So if you need anything on audio, I mean, Michael is definitely the guy. He just knows it, and he knows it like it instantly, right? It's kind of like I bet you're like one of those people who, when they read something, they know in 5 minutes whether or not it's going to be a good book. I just can't thank you enough on that. But yeah, so what are you guys talking about? I don't want to deal with it too much.
Oh yeah, it's all good. We were talking about Mount Timeless starting a periodical, a collective, a pulp genre magazine. And, just to get back to even some of the stuff that you were talking about, I think, with regard to audio, that's another good potential avenue for product as far as, I haven't necessarily seen a periodical audio release. I know there are kind of serial podcasts that come out, and I actually did some voice acting for a genre release that came out earlier this year. So it was around the Columbian Exposition, which is, as most folks probably know at this point, one of my major projects that I do, called Chicago 1893. So there's a guy that I've met over the last couple of years. He's been putting together a podcast, and I was able to kind of feature on one of those as a character, and kind of brought that character to life, which was very fun for me. But yeah, I would say, like, with audio, I've done not only a number of audio books at this point, but that all started, the knowledge and capacity to do that started as a musician and recording albums and demoing and stuff like that. So it kind of comes from that side of things where, if you're recording, you want to get good audio, and the same practices for getting a good guitar or drum sound are the same ones that you're going to use for voice. Or if you're mixing audio, it's the same thing that whether it's music or sound effects or multiple voices or whatever, you're going to use those same skills in the software to do those things. Again, anybody that wants to come up and chat or has questions or has feedback for these guys about what they're doing, you're welcome to do that. This is a very casual hangout. It's conversational.
Yeah. Well, as you were talking, I mean, that's a really good point to make. When you're bringing sound into a story, because I mean that's what you're doing, right? You're bringing sound in. It's like music in that way. So I think that's really interesting in terms of how to, when you're reading it and you're looking at your words, if you're, I mean, for me, it makes me think about when you're writing something, if there's going to be an audio to it, and I think today you can pretty much assume that, you really have to consider how it sounds out loud and how it will be read. I mean, if you're comparing it to musical instruments, it kind of adds a really interesting dimension that you were making me think of as you were talking.
Well, you want the experience to be good. You want it to be immersive, and music works the same way.
Well, that's exactly it, right? You want to bring them into that world of your story, which is, when you were saying making an audio periodical, I think maybe that's one of the things that would be hard about it, is because I think when you're creating an audible book, you're bringing people into another sort of world. Like when you're reading, you're in that world. But with a periodical, you're bouncing them in and out as you're going from story to story.
Well, let me give you an example. I've done a release last year. So I had one short story, my first fiction short that I put out last year called The Relic. And it's very short. It's only like 1,200 words. And I was like, this is going to be incredibly short. So what I decided to do is go dig up a few other stories by authors that I like, that I felt kind of fit the tone of my story in a collective sense. So I did a reading by H.P. Lovecraft and Frank Belknap Long, and another one by Edgar Allan Poe. So there's, 3 other stories there. They're all different. They are not, thematically or topically addressing the same things, but I felt that they had enough connective tissue to put them together. And I did them, at the same style of production in that sense, to where it's like I do the narrative read and then I do the, audio drama version of that as well. So I think it can be done.
Well, yeah, I mean, you make the point there where the cohesiveness comes from the production, from the voice, from the same style, and from the same production. That you're, sorry, I'm helping my son sort through a pile of stuff.
Critical.
I just popped into the room and he's looking at me like, "Why are you on X again?" Mm-hmm. Anyway, but no, I mean, so to finish my thought though, but yeah, no, I could see how you could do it by creating cohesiveness in another way, by pulling them together like an anthology, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you could do it by theme of the stories, but you can also do it through the production quality. You could use sound as your cohesiveness.
100%.
So that's kind of that's an interesting way of looking at it. Okay. I
so
like
there
that.
are even some sound effects that I utilized multiple times in that group of collections, to where I don't want to say it becomes a refrain, but it and I might not even use the exact same portion of that audio, because sometimes you'll get a clip that's very long and you like only a segment of it, but you might use a different segment of it later. Say it's a 2-minute clip of, some ambient sound or whatever. In that way, it still has that consistent sort of feeling texture to the space that you're creating with the audio. And I think that, it adds a lot of work. Obviously you're doing a novel, so that would be quite an extreme amount of work. But maybe inside of, while you're doing that, you say there's one particular chapter that I really want to give maybe a bonus version of this, or do it as an audio drama, and there's some element or component of the story within that chapter that lends itself to fleshing out more of an immersive audio experience for the listener. That might be something that you want to do. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just saying it's an option.
It's a really interesting idea.
Yeah. Again, folks that are on stage, check them out. They're working on their stuff. They're, very graciously taking their time to talk with us today and hang out. This session is recorded. I do release these as podcasts. There's a link to the last session up in the nest, as well as a link to my last audiobook release and a few other interesting things that are going on that you might like as well. Anybody that's hanging out, this is a very open hangout. You're more than welcome to come up. Just request the mic. I will bring you up. You're welcome to ask questions or give feedback to these guys. If your thoughts are in parallel or in opposition, that works as well. We do not mind a little bit of dialogue and thinking this stuff out. Has any of that stuff helped you, Mount Timeless?
Well, I was going to say, like, the last time I did a project that, involved what you're talking about was quite a while ago. In 2004, I put out a book of poetry. And the thing I was into then was like open mics. Mm. And when you get into open mic culture, you tend to get into, not always, but sometimes you tend to get into like spoken word. And I had a lot of spoken word. I had a lot of CDs of it. I thought it was a big deal. I thought it was a big deal for poetry because of the way that the Beats did their own recordings, the way that like other descendants of beat writing emphasized it. And it's like I wanted to take it to another level. This is very, very geek, so forgive me, but we called it technoetry. I had this person who basically designed a bunch of music and soundscaping for it.
That's
because
cool.
a lot of the poems had rich imagery and pseudo narrative. So we were able to soundscape and to, in some cases, soundtrack the poems, and the production is crap, but because we didn't have any money, we were working with bare minimum stuff, but it's pretty decent production. I don't mean like quality sound quality. I mean quality like we gave it our heart. I would love to one day be in a position to recreate the entire project on a better level. And it's like as you're talking here, you and Heidi, I was kind of thinking like now that we're talking about doing this 4 times a year, this quarterly thing. I'm wondering now, should we do like a spoken word record? Like, should we try to like get that moving too?
Well, I would say don't bite off more than you can chew. I would say get one thing going, and then as you are working that forward, if you have the capacity for some other component, or you could do bonus material. So this is an interesting thing that a lot of people don't know about KDP ebooks, right? You can embed audio and video into your ebooks.
Yeah, like I did not know that, for example.
Now there you go. So, and in fact, I had embedded video, I think, into the first version of the National Parks Volume 1 release. I have since pulled it out because I wanted to be able to price it better. So the ebooks on KDP are priced by data, as opposed to like page count or word count and stuff like that. So you have to price according to the data. And that might limit what you do, but there's additional ways of doing that. So say you have maybe an audio production of one of the stories or a couple of the stories, you get you and Tom to do readings or something. You could then connect that through ACX to your KDP release, and it will post that adjacently on the Amazon page, right? It'll go on Audible as well and Apple Books, but if you basically, it'll give you the option when you are entering the release on ACX to go and find the Amazon release, and you'll be able to couple those together so that when you look on Amazon, it'll say paperback, ebook, audiobook right on there. You can do a hardback as well. So you could get 4 items listed on that one page entry on Amazon, in addition to getting it out on Apple Books and getting it over on Audible as well. So there's a lot of ways to kind of stretch out into the ecosystem that they provide, but then also to get indexed. And I think that's valuable in regards to being searchable, not only on the platforms that you're releasing on, but also the search engines and the web at large, because stuff finds its way out into the universe, the digital web universe in that sense. Hey guys, if you're hanging out and you have comments or questions, request a mic and come and hang out. This is a very chill scenario. This is not, I'm not holding court in any capacity. Hey, Gonzalo, you're here. I don't know if you have time to talk, but, if you like, we'll pass you the mic. Yeah, so talking periodicals, talking audio, talking editorial, editing, layout, really whatever you guys want to. it's basically, this is your session as much as it's my space, I guess. In that way, I'm just a facilitator. I'm not an arbiter. Let's say that. What's up? How's it going?
Hey man, how's it going? I meant to set a reminder for this. I don't know why I didn't, and I saw it up by accident. I was like, "Oh, right, it's the second Wednesday."
Accident is as good as any. Yeah. So every other Wednesday, we're in here, we're chatting, we're talking writing, publishing, authorship, books, audiobooks, periodicals, print on demand. We're talking production, layout, whatever it is that you guys want. We will talk about that. We'll talk comic books too. I'm happy to talk about that. There's probably some interesting things that you have discovered in regards to KDP or other platforms as well.
You mean me specifically?
Yeah.
Actually, I don't. I haven't really gone into KDP ever. Like I've heard of it a bunch, but I haven't investigated it much. I'd have to have finished work first to be like, all right, let's see where I can publish this.
I'm kind of curious if you could do your comics, right? Because you've got a few of the shorter ones. I'm wondering if those could be put out through Vela. I really don't know. I kind of shied away from Vela. It didn't make sense to me, for me. So I've started to kind of go in a different direction with it. But yeah, I feel like maybe there might be something there for comics. And I've only taken a very broad, short look at Vela, but it might be something to check out for you. And for those that aren't aware, Vela is kind of Amazon KDP's short form distribution channel. So if you want to put something out that's like, I think, 1,000 words or less, maybe more. I don't know exactly kind of what their word count, how they structure it.
I wish Tom was here because he was doing it for like 9 months straight. He was doing Vela, and then he just like kind of stopped. He knows all about it. Maybe we got a next show. We got to ask him about it, because I don't really know.
Yeah, there's a friend of mine who was doing it as well, and he put out some chapters on there, but it conflict. There is some stipulation on there to where if you put something out on Vela, you have to wait a little while before you release it on Amazon proper. So there's, I think, maybe like 2 or 3 month waiting period. So he stopped doing that because he wanted to put his book out, which was finished. And that was there was a restriction there. So that is something to be cognizant of as well. It might be a good place to workshop stuff and build some sense of an audience that way. And then to kind of convert them over to the larger release when that becomes available. And it's not something that I've done, but it is something that I am aware of other people doing and taking advantage of.
Well, you mentioned things like chapters and stuff and word counts. I don't know how it works for comics specifically, but I mean, I bought a few comics on Kindle, so I imagine there is a way. And I would probably look into it as soon as it's done. I gotta get it done first. I'm still writing it. I'm still doing a little bit of the art. But I'm basically focusing on writing the actual story and gathering funds for the art itself later, because I'm way too slow at drawing it. So I have to hire that out for sure.
Me both. So I would say the program that you'll need to put out an ebook is, I'm pretty sure it's called Kindle Create. Let me double check just to make sure, because I got my computer sitting here and I have that piece of software on my computer. And just to make sure that I'm not calling it the wrong thing, it is Kindle Create. So what that'll do is it'll take your manuscript in whatever format you do. So you can have it to be, say you're all editorial. It will adjust the material to fit the best on a Kindle or the app. Say you're on Android or iOS instead of an actual dedicated Kindle, it will mutate that material into the right dimensions for the device or the app. What you can also do, though, and this is something that's valuable for me so that I don't have to completely do two different layouts, it will allow you to just pull the PDF into Kindle Create, and it will do a one-to-one translation of your PDF manuscript. So like for a few of my books, they're very heavily pictorial, and I need those images adjacent to the text. So it will replicate it on the Kindle device the exact same way as I produced it on the PDF, and that is a time saver, because otherwise, you're basically having to do one layout for every single distribution channel that you want, and that's just a massive amount of time. Now they also have a specific option for comic books, and I've never done that because I don't have any comics, but I would say download that piece of software and have a look at it and see, maybe what it's doing for you in advance of getting done, just so you kind of know what you're up against.
Yeah, that'll probably take at least a couple of months, but I definitely plan on looking that up, researching it more as I approach as I approach completion, let's say, right? Because I am planning on publishing it on Web3 on an app called D-Reader, and as an option for the people that I know who would want to, you always want to expand to your audience, right? So
right.
I have considered publishing it as well on Amazon, but like what format exactly and how to format it and what app to use, I haven't given it much thought. Now you said this Kindle Create kind of morphs your book into the format depending on the aspect ratio of the screen it's on, right? But what about comic panels? I'm going to have to Google a bunch of stuff too.
It has three different options. One of them is it's adjustable to the device. The second option would be PDF one-to-one conversion, and then there is an option dedicated to comic books. So there's, that's why I'm saying I would download it now. It's free. It doesn't cost any money. They create it for people in publishing, authors and editors and stuff like that, to be able to get their material seamlessly loaded into the KDP platform. So I would download it, take a look at it, and at least just fiddle around with it just to see again, how it functions. And it will cost you nothing but a little bit of time to learn it and understand it in advance of creating a deadline for yourself and then scrambling to get it loaded into there and approved through the KDP process. And you can start as many times as you want. You can, just delete that and start again if you're not liking how it's going. I've done it. I've destroyed what I was working on and had to begin again. So, it's the learning curve.
Well, I like the idea that there's a specific option for comics. So there's probably an answer in there somewhere, and I will definitely investigate that. I think I would run the risk of procrastinating, playing around with the options in there instead of moving forward with the comic itself. But that's a great what's the word? It's great to know that about Kindle Create. I would have had to start from zero, so now I'm starting from one. Thanks, man.
Hey, no sweat. Yeah, it's critical. Heidi, if you're back and you want to come and hang out, come on up. We're still here. This is Gonzalo already. You guys are aware of each other. We're talking about comics and layout, and we were talking audiobooks a little bit earlier because Heidi is working on hers, and I was giving her a little feedback on production. But Gonzalo does voice work too, and he might have some interesting feedback on that too if you were looking for another beta listener.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Gonzalo, want a beta listen? We're trying to do my book right now. And if you want to, yeah, I'll take a beta listener. If okay, I will. I will contact you. I need to.
What
Maybe.
exactly are you looking for with beta listeners? Like, what do you need, like audio quality and stuff like that, or the book itself, like storyline, words, stuff, writing?
Well, it's written, so I hope you all like it at this point, because I don't think I'm going to be rewriting it anymore.
Yeah, you need to change the chapter 3 where the guy walks in the door.
Trust me, I want to. It's probably one of the more it is one of the more challenging parts of doing an audio recording of the novel is seeing things you want to go change. Yeah. So believe me, I only half jokingly say that, but and it's like, and then knowing that you have to stop, you've decided to stop and you can't. You've just got to stop. Believe me.
And that's why I do the audiobook production, or at least not the production, but I do the audiobook recording before I do the paperback and ebook releases now, because it serves as kind of like a last firewall for decision making, layout and whatever else that you've got going on at the time.
I can see that. I'll tell you, I did my first experience with using, because I use Adobe Audition. My first experience with that was recording once I'd finished the book and gone through it a ton and had some beta reads. But before I did a developmental edit with somebody, I recorded myself reading the whole book. I mean, not in any attempt to share it. It's not like a quality professional recording. Just sort of me talking at my computer. So I could, and then I would listen back to hear the chapters. And I definitely caught stuff doing that. I would totally recommend that. And I could see why you would do that, because it does clean it up, and it sort of speaks to that thing about, how does it sound? What's the rhythm and all of that stuff? Because there's a rhythm to writing. It goes in your head even when you're just reading it, silently to yourself, so to speak. Mm-hmm. But just quickly answer, basically, my book has... Oddly enough, it divides pretty evenly between a male and a female point of view, third person limited, right? So I wanted half the book to be read by a female narrator and half by a male. So what Michael helped us with is the fact, I mean, other than, neither of us really knew what we were doing in terms of recording, and we're learning it as we go, but also just, having the two narrations gel, having the sounds gel, that kind of thing, so that it isn't just, so that it flows more. As you were talking when I was on here before, I had to go deal with something, but having them work together so it's not jarring to the listener experiencing it, right? You want that sort of underlying cohesiveness. So I guess that's kind of where we're at, and then with the narration and the style and all of that. So it's a challenge for two reasons. One, you've got two different people who speak differently, but also just on the technical side, getting it to the sound to be even. As you were talking about gates and such, where I get a little lost with the technical terms, I'm still learning it. But that would be something on a beta listen. Are we connecting? Is it jarring to you? Does it sound like, are people reading two different things? It's like two different books are being read and just were smashed together. That kind of thing, right?
Yeah, I think I get it. So basically how it comes off in general, if anything is too jarring, if the intended idea or message is coming across, if it sounds okay, or if like one side is like sounds, I imagine they were done remotely, the recordings. So there's probably a difference in the sound quality. There's different microphone and all that. So yeah. I have a very hard time doing beta reading because I have very little time. But if it's beta listening, I can probably listen to it while I'm walking the dog, doing the dishes, and check it out for you bit by bit, and just give you my feedback for sure.
Well, that's the thing with Audible, right? With audiobooks, is we all can make time for that as you're doing other things, which is one of the reasons I want to have my stuff be in Audible, at least, or go to audio, because I totally get that. I'm way guilty of that. I listen to books when I'm in Costco. That's my favorite thing to do there, because I can tune out all the craziness that is the Costco, right?
Timeless. You got your hand raised. You don't have to raise your hand. You can chime in whenever you want.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Now, Heidi, when you're talking about making changes, are you referring to re-recording for audio quality, or are we talking about the actual text itself because there's like something needs adjusting? Which is the basis of that? Like, is it for sound quality?
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Or performance, right?
Performance, or is it otherwise?
Well, right at this point, it's going to have to be performance. I'm not going to change the book at this point. I mean, unless it's done. And I'm writing the second one. It's a series. So I'm just saying that it gets a little frustrating because maybe as you're reading it and listening back to it, you're like, oh, maybe I should have used this word instead of that word. Or, do you know what I mean? I mean, it's just, you can't, it's that thing where you just can't stop wanting to tweak it. And at some point,
art is never finished, only abandoned. Take solace in how famous that phrase is, that quote.
Anybody else that's hanging out, if you want to come up and chat or have questions or comments, you could drop them into the pill if you want. That's obviously an option for you. Otherwise, if Heidi or Gonzalo, if you guys have other thoughts or comments that you want to go after, now is that time. Oh, now he's back. Hold on. Let's see if he wants to finish his thought. Let's do that. That might be the better way. Oh, he sent a request. I sent a invite simultaneously. Two ships passing in the night. Welcome back. You are now on stage. Finish your thought.
You know how this platform is with the glitching.
I've heard of it.
Yeah, I'm sure. I don't know that I had very much to say as far as that's concerned. Because it's like I feel the same way about, like, if I'm listening. I had my nephew made me an audio book, but he made it like with a PDF, like the way it sounds, a PDF reader. You can get your PDF, like you can get this app that will read your PDFs to you, and it kind of sounds like a GPS. And whereas it is a little bit of a lo-fi, not a fantastic audio book, it's like it's what I can afford to do. Because I do good reads, but I would have to have someone really stand over me in order to make my own audiobook, I think.
Dude, I've heard you do dramatic readings on here before, man. Don't undersell yourself. Is that the word? Undersell? You do spectacular dramatic readings. I've heard you, so I can I don't know. Well, I know you weren't trying to be modest, but I'll say it for you, man. They're awesome.
Oh, thank you, Gonzalo. You honor me. I appreciate it. That's all I'm saying about it is the reading thing. I'm big in reading, but I don't know about recording. I guess you're saying it's the same thing, huh? Like, how do we feel about that? Is reading a zero draft the same thing as making an audio book? I don't know why I'm making the distinction between the two.
I don't know. I guess if you're happy with the condition of the material, then that's one thing. If you're happy with the condition of the audio, that is another. I think that the best thing to do is just rip it, go back and listen to it, and see if there are things that aren't landing or doing what you want them to do for you as a listener or performer. And then you can go back in and re-record those segments or do the whole thing again. Or maybe you discover that, like, as you're reading an early draft, that you are sensing something in the story that isn't quite what you want it to be. And then you can, go back in there and mess with the editorial and turn it into the shape that you want. And that's kind of how I use my audiobook readings. So I do them as really kind of like the last thing that I'm doing there. And I do that reading, and then essentially If there are any little changes that need to happen, I've got the manuscript right in front of me. I make those changes as I'm doing the reading, and that's basically the final version. What's up?
Yeah, you also have to consider. I'm sorry, I was finished. I didn't expect you to say what's up so quickly, but I was finishing showing. You also have to consider little things in the recording. Like it's one thing to deliver the performance, which can be, it can be flawless on the phone or on a stage, or just like, giving it to someone in person. But when you record it, I like as a voiceover freelancer for many years, I can tell you that there are lots of little things that you have to kind of learn. Things like mic technique, the distance, and when you have a moment of intensity, you have to be careful not to go. What's the word?
Peaking the mic.
Peaking. Thank you. So you don't want to peak the microphone, because you can lose that take if it peaks, right? You can boost the sound when it's too low, but you can't bring it down once it's peaked. It just loses quality. So lots of little things like that technical things that you have to consider when you're recording. What's in your space? Like right now, I'm talking to you from the kitchen, and there's a lot of echo. There's lots of little things like that you gotta consider. If you have access to a recording booth, or even just surrounding yourself with lots of material to make, like physical material to bring down the echo. A lot of people record in a closet.
Yep.
It's a very fast, cheap, and surprisingly effective solution. And I forget how I was going to land that plane, but there are little things like that. But as far as the performance, I have no idea how I was going to land that. I'll just leave it there.
Yeah, it's fine. We got the gist of it. We know where you're going.
Yeah.
We were along for the ride, in-flight snacks, and we arrived at our destination.
I hope you guys brought your parachutes.
Yeah. Well, shoot. Any closing comments, thoughts, from the folks here on stage or hanging out? This is, we usually go for at least an hour. I don't mind going longer if you guys want, but I won't keep you here if you don't like.
I'm just glad I made it in, Michael. I like these spaces. I would say, I think like I haven't heard you do a performance. Now I really want to. So hopefully I'll catch one. When you're doing something, are you doing them in spaces or something?
You got to catch MJ's space.
Yeah.
You did it on MJ's space last time.
It's
Okay.
true. The last couple have been on MJ's reads. Well, Tom and I go with reads, and we actually do a lot of times Thursdays.
Jesus.
O'clock lately. But we're not doing it tomorrow. He's on vacation. Probably the Father's Day we'll have a read show, and you're more than welcome, Heidi, and bring
Yeah,
friends.
if it's on Father's Day, that might be problematic. But I try to make it. It's weird when I can get into spaces, and then half the time I feel like I should be off writing instead of playing around on here, right?
I feel the same way. I know.
Who does writing? Who's writing?
I know. Why do that? Right?
My writers.
No, but I would just, one thing I would say, and Michael, you tell me if you agree, but when you're reading, like even if you're just reading a book, I view it as a performance. I mean, I'm not an actor per se, but I don't mind acting on when I'm alone in a closet. You know what I mean?
Well, this is your chance.
I know. I am a closet actor. So, so I don't know. I mean, to me, I think it has to kind of be a performance. Maybe that's what I'm reading. As Michael pointed out, I'm sort of reading with a mid-Atlantic style. I wonder if that's why that, and I've watched way too many old movies, but
I like it.
Not to toot my own horn, but I kind of like the way it sounded too. So I kind of went with it.
Yeah. And I don't know, when is the time frame of your book?
Well, it's fantasy, right? But it's like a fantasy Western, but it is, I would, in my mind, I make it equivalent to like the 1880s, 1870s kind of thing.
Sure.
So I think it works. And we'll see. But yeah, so in terms of your question, I think when you're reading anything to others, there's a performance to it. Even like if you're just reading a story to your kids.
100%.
That's all I would say on that. But thanks. I will not keep anyone longer because I don't know if anyone else is starting to feel the guilt.
Oh, I don't feel guilty about it. I'm happy to, I carve out this time for this session. That's that's why I do it every 2 weeks. That's what I can manage to do, So with that said, thank you for hanging out and for bringing your ideas and your concerns and your comments for those people that have been on stage. Do this every 2 weeks. We'll be back in 2 weeks. This recording will be made available the Monday before that next session. You can look for it on SpeakerCone. That is the channel I release this stuff through. Doing interviews as well. If people have material they are releasing they are looking to do a promotional podcast, I'm always looking for guests. Happy to bring you on, talk shop, get you to open up a little bit and promote your work. I like to bring on folks that are putting out a finished product and within the time frame that it's coming out. So reach out if you do have something that makes sense. I have a couple of different series. You can check out my podcast. It's up on Spotify and Amazon and wherever else you like your podcast delivered. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we will talk before too long.